Our associate producer, James Baker, has also called the show. James, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine.
Good, good. We have two very special guests tonight, Billy Willard and Tom Lancaster. I believe Tom has just called in, so I'm going to click on this. Let's see. Tom, do we have you, sir?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, Tom, good to hear from you. Okay, our guests tonight are terrific researchers, Billy Willard and Tom Lancaster. They're doing tremendous field work in Virginia for Sasquatch Watch. But first, I have an announcement to make. Normally, we don't promote other people's shows here except for Steve Cole's Squatch Detective Radio, which is our sister show. However, this Wednesday night is going to be a very important and revealing night. This Wednesday night on Bigfoot Live with Tom Biscardi. I know how some of us feel about Mr. Biscardi, but anyway, he will have as his guest. This is our opportunity to question these men. Finally, Greg Long, the author of The Making of Bigfoot, The Inside Story. Philip Morris, the costume maker who claims he sold a gorilla suit to Roger Patterson in 1967, and the star witness himself, Bob Hieronymus, will be on Tom Biscardi's radio show this Wednesday night, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. The website is www.bigfootliveradioshow.com. So tune in. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be our opportunity to question Mr. Hieronymus and put him under cross-examination. And that's the only announcement I've got. So, Billy Willard and Tom Lancaster, how y'all doing tonight?
Well, as I said, Henry, I'm a little under the weather. I've been sick for about a week and went out Friday night when it was really cold and stayed up pretty much all night and got even sicker.
Oh, man. That's going to be terrible.
Yeah, Henry, unfortunately, I'm under the weather, too. I picked up a cold, and maybe Billy got it from me or I got it from Billy, but something's happening here. We're all very sick.
Oh, gee. Well, it's okay. You guys, you'll be on the mend soon. And I'm glad you guys remembered, that you were on the show tonight despite daylight savings time. I know that kind of screwed some people up a little bit today, but anyhow. So, I have to say, I'm looking at your blog right now, the Sasquatch Field Research, and that's, by the way, folks, that's http://Sasquatch Watch of VA field.blogspot.com. It's excellent. The stuff you guys have on here, really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we kind of undertook, some of the recent research there. We're seeing these formations and stuff in the woods, and we, instead of just downplaying them and not even documenting anything, we decided it would probably be a good idea to just go ahead and collect some data. Nothing really, what I would consider hard evidence, obviously, but certainly nothing wrong with collecting some data about what we're finding out there.
Yep.
How long have you been collecting the data?
Actually, James, we just started just a couple of months ago. To be honest, we had the suggestion, and we've got permission to tell who that was. Bill Dranginis had given us the suggestion to start collecting some information about these structures and formations whenever we would find them. So that's what we decided to do.
In a few months, have you gotten any patterns yet, or is it just too early to tell?
Yeah, it's still kind of early to tell. There's been several questions raised. Are they navigational? Are they territorial markers? And there's also been some good arguments. One of the main arguments is, does Sasquatch really need a navigational tool? He should know the woods like the back of his hands. And I agree with that. Certainly I'm sure they know the woods like we know our house if we're walking in our house in the dark. I mean, I think that's a good argument. So what they really mean, I guess, until we continue to collect data and actually just map these things, zoom out a map, take a look, and see if we can, get any information from it. I guess we just don't know at this point.
Mm-hmm. I have to say the stick structures on the blog here are quite interesting, and I can't imagine a human going into this area and just making them, or some sort of animal. And another thing that's interesting is this hollowed out and matted down postal shelter. That's quite interesting. That would probably explain, how these things live without caves in the area. Are there any caves in the area where you guys research?
Tom, I'll let you answer that one. Since Tom is the geologist, he'll probably know a little bit more about the geology of the area.
Yeah, there certainly could be, but it's not an area of limestone or anything like that, so they're not prevalent if they're there. It would be more of a crystal and rock type of structure if it's present, and I don't think we've got. I think it's unlikely. So the answer, was it Henry that answered that?
Yeah.
Okay, Henry, the answer to that would be it's unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
The area where we're doing this research.
Very interesting. Go ahead, James.
I had a question. The area you chose, was that based on a person or a reported sighting?
This area has, Billy and I are actually investigating many different areas.
Okay.
We're jumping around, but this latest area that we started collecting evidence back in January and the beginning of February, and it's on our blog now, the newly developed blog. This area has had historical sightings that date back years, many years, maybe even as far back as 20 years that are recorded. So it's got a fair amount of activity.
It has a history then.
Yeah, it definitely has a history. The area was actually, Billy and I were led into this area by a couple other friends that are researchers. One of the fellows saw a twist which led to us following him into this area, and then that led to Billy finding the first print of the 6-print track. And it wasn't until we came back later that we actually figured out we got other prints here, and then we measured it, and we were very shocked to see. Billy and I were very shocked to see that these prints were all 11 feet apart exactly, except for the print between the smashed log, and I guess the first print that's north of it. We were very shocked about that. We were very shocked that the prints were all 15 by 7 inches. It was just an exciting moment when we found that track. But really, we were led into that area by other researchers, and we. I guess to answer your question, we had previously been in this region before because of various sighting reports that had recently come out in the last year, back in the summer of 2006 and maybe even earlier. So we had been out in this area. Yes, Billy and I, before discovering this track that's in the blog, and there's pictures of the prints in this blog as well, if you go down far enough. But we had found another print out there and some other possible tracks. In fact, the dry lake bed had tracks, many tracks, but we just couldn't really confirm it because it was, they were eroded, and we didn't have any real good definition of the ball and heel and toes. So we were scratching our heads over that as well. But it certainly looked like tracks to me. It's just it wasn't very conclusive. This 6-print track. We did have some toe ridges and some toes and some various things show up. So it is something that we feel pretty confident about. So what's interesting is like Billy said, Bill Dringitis had the wonderful idea of, maybe these structures are some sort of a navigational tool or something, or a boundary, as others have said, of some sort. And so, Bill Dringitis' suggestion to make some measurements. We didn't do all the measurements he suggested, and we still need to do that, and we still need to go out there and map some more structure and see what happens. But what was interesting when we first found the 6-print track, these other friends and researchers actually discovered a couple of these structures nearby, and as we were taking in the data for the track, we also took in data for what the structural data. In this case, the highest stick was pointing in a direction towards the 6-print track. And so that led to mapping out other unnatural stick structures in the area. And then in the blog, you can see that the trends of the highest stick and where it's pointing is just unusual. And it's certainly suggestive of some sort of a marker of some sort. In fact, the probability that, if you were to look at six stick structures out there, and if you were to just do a very simple statistical calculation, there is a 99.9984% random chance that at least one of these highest sticks will be pointing in a direction not towards the adjacent stick structure, but at least 10 degrees off of it. So it did, just not that it's worth running any statistical package at this point on this data because we got so little. It does show that there is a fairly good trend and correlation of these directions that these sticks are pointing. So it's certainly suggestive. I threw out there that it may be suggestive of that these structures are a navigational tool, and others have pointed out that there's other possibilities, and certainly I sure as heck know so. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible here. It may turn out that, as we map more structures, that something else will emerge data. But regardless, this data doesn't prove anything. It doesn't really show us anything definitive at this point. It's just suggestive of what I really don't know. Don't know what it really. I can't really be conclusive about what it means.
Okay, that's great, Tom. Sorry, I dropped out for a minute, folks. My Skype cut me off for some reason. Or, James, did you accidentally hang me up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, my Skype cut off, doggone it. And, Tom, by the way, we're being asked to ask you to speak up louder. Hard to hear you speaking.
Oh, okay. I'll do that. How about now? Can you hear me?
That's great.
That sounds great. Okay, folks, the number to call is 347-996-5814. Or, well, that's it. That's the number for tonight,
I have another question, if you don't mind, Henry.
Hang on, James.
Okay.
Or you can you can PM me at Giant82004-2000. That's on Yahoo Messenger. Okay, go ahead, James. Sorry.
No, that's fine. My question was, could the markers actually be both? I mean, has there been anything where the creature migrates? Like maybe it's like, you go hunting at a certain spot every year, marks a tree of where you're at. Now, or at the other places, is you tell the local hunters that that's your area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, James. Are you suggesting that the formation could possibly be made by human?
Well, no, I'm saying that the formation is taken by the Bigfoot, but they're using it as a, like, say that's their winter home compared to their summer home, so that they remember which spot they were in. So, like a migration towards, in the summer they spend more time where it's warmer than up north. When you leave for 6 months out of the year or whatever it is, to remember where the terrain is, maybe they leave that marker. It also suits to the other Sasquatch that says, hey, this is my area, find another home.
That's actually a good thought, James. We had that suggestion also, that it acts as a marker to say to other Bigfoot families or clans, hey, this is my territory, this is my area, this is my home, to let others know. I certainly don't think it couldn't be a possibility. But I saw something interesting here lately, actually something that occurred back in December 2006 in Virginia. I don't know if anybody has lately went over to the BFRO database. They had a West Virginia sighting that one of the researchers had went to, and whatever reason, as I was reading through the encounter, just to make it short, it was a lady who was having some kind of experience with hearing something outside of her home. And it sounded like a really low moan, like something was in pain outside her bedroom window. She was too scared to get up and look to see what it was. And then she recalled it sounded like it went over towards the garage where her dog was. The dog, of course, was having a fit. And then she heard something hit on the garage, and then the dog stopped making a sound. And then she mentions later on that she had, and this was actually brought out during the interview by the researcher at the BFRO, when he had asked about a sighting she had mentioned seeing a creature in the woods. She said it was about 7 to 8 feet tall. When they went and looked into the woods, they actually found a limb formation, or a stick structure, where the longest stick was pointing straight to the house. I found that part of the interview interesting because, again, we have someone who has took the time to find something that just looked unusual, out of place, and noticed that, this thing's pointing towards the house. I just thought that was interesting that he saw that as important enough to collect and actually notate. So, there may be something to those.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's certainly possible. Some of what James brought out this idea of a migrational type of scenario. There's lots of different things that are coming out from different researchers about an explanation. One of which is that the kids know how to get home. I thought that was sort of interesting. But again, we don't know what this data really means yet. It is interesting that the 6-print track is trending north-northeast, and these stick structures on either side of it are pointing right at the stick tracks, parallel to the stick track, and pointing north-northeast as well as south-southwest. So some of this stuff is very interesting. The mysteries we've got in these findings is that ST2 and ST3 on these graphics that we had presented. At those two locations, we've got unnatural structures that are side by side. I'm not sure why that is. Like, for example, at ST3, that's unnatural stick structure. We've got two unnatural TP structures side by side, and then at ST2, we've got a lean-to, several sticks lean-to that are unnatural next to a TP structure. And, why that is, God only knows. I can't make heads or tails of that. Maybe someone said to me that we have, when we mark the Appalachian Trail, we mark it various ways. If it's turning or if there's a intersection, we have a double mark. Or if it's doing something else, we have another mark. And so someone was saying maybe that mark is something to say that there's a junction there, and there's more structures off to the side somewhere. And so who knows? I guess more mapping may uncover some of it. The hope is that maybe we are onto something here. Maybe it will turn out to show pathways, and pathways that will lead to further uncovering this whole mystery. But I certainly am not going to get my hopes up. We're just going to go out and collect data, see what happens.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah. The other mystery here is in the actual track, we casted one of the prints, didn't have, and in that cast, as we are cleaning it up, Billy's cleaning it up, we may, in fact, we definitely, looks like we have toes on one side, or a toe ridge, a big toe and a toe ridge, and on the other side, we may even have some toes on the other side of the foot. And so it makes me think that if that's true, if as we clean it up and we verify that this creature or whatever made these prints stepped in it going the other direction, used the same tracks going in each direction. But it makes me think that, but to say anything conclusive about it is going to be hard. It's just, we're going to see what happens here. We're going to clean up that cast and put it out on the blog and see what folks think about it. The other thing is, as a result of talking with XJ, a fellow out there, a researcher, I guess, on the West Coast, the suggestion was let's go ahead and put a video camera 8 to 9 feet off the ground and walk along this trend line and see what the creature would see at that height, and to actually go ahead and walk it and see if there, if that provides anything further. It may or may not. It certainly will be fun making it and watching it, and we'll certainly have that on the blog or somewhere on the site soon enough. So, Go ahead, Henry. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to ask you about that shelter that y'all found. Approximately how big was it, and how wide, and whatever? And did you detect any odors inside it?
Yeah, Billy found it. Billy, why don't you address that one?
Yeah, actually, Henry, when I did get in it, it was about, the opening was roughly about 4 to 5 feet wide, and it was about 5 feet tall. It went back in pretty deep. You can kind of see at the picture how dark it is on the inside, so it goes back in there quite a ways. I did look around for some, any kind of hair or any other, items that might have been laying around. I didn't see any kind of items. I didn't see any evidence of hair. It did have a strange smell in it. However, I can't confirm that wouldn't have been a deer smell, because as you know, deer have a pretty good stink to them as well. But I didn't see anything that was clearly evident to me that, a creature the size of a Sasquatch was staying in there. Certainly good enough size for one to go in there and actually stay in there and be undetected, because that thing is quite thick.
Okay, well, how far back in the woods was it, and would it have been, how hard would it have been for a hunter to find or something like that?
Well, that's the other thing. You have to keep in mind that this entire area is in an area that is hunted. It is probably approximately, and I didn't take these measurements, but I'm going by, I've been to the site so many times I can pretty much quote it. It's probably approximately 50 feet away from an open field where some duck hunting occurs, and it's approximately good 100-plus yards away from an actual trail where people may travel a lot. So if it is used, I don't think it's used for a long period of time. I think it would be used as a temporary stop, so to speak. Just a place to maybe, I don't know, get out of the rain, or a place to, to just hide for just a little bit. I don't think it would be used for anything long term.
Certainly, Henry, it is an area where humans are in there, I guess, regularly for hunting and this and that. And yeah, there's always the possibility that who knows, maybe all these structures and footprints and everything is all big hope. I tend to seriously think that's extremely unlikely scenario because the data getting is would be hard. I think some of especially the track. I don't. How can you jump 11 feet and 11 feet and 11 feet? I don't know. I just think it would be extremely unlikely that somebody's hoaxing us. There's always the possibility. The other thing is, in the vicinity, we went out with a couple friends on Friday night, another couple other researchers, and set up some parabolics. These are voice or sound recording devices, as well as one of the fellows had a thermal imager. We had night vision. We had all sorts of equipment. We stayed out all night, and this was in the vicinity of the area of these tracks and unnatural structures. We had some activity at, I can't remember now, Billy may be able to help me out. I think it was 8 o'clock, 1:30 a.m., and 4 a.m., and some of the activity was pretty intense, and it might have been about 100 miles away from where we were. We heard chatter, or Billy described it as two babies talking to each other, or something like that. It was a really weird, and maybe Billy can tell you more about that. We heard two grunts, and some of the other guys heard some other grunts, and we heard bipedal footsteps out the wazoo. In fact, at one time we heard two creatures in there 100 feet away from us in the leaves, and they were doing something with breaking logs and stuff like that. It actually was sort of halfway scary in a way, bringing back flashbacks. But anyway, Billy, maybe you want to talk about this chatter.
Yeah, I had actually put one of the fellow researchers had brought along a bionic ear, had it mounted on a tree, approximately. Actually, it wasn't mounted on a tree; it was mounted on a tripod, quite a distance from the camp. And I had on the headphones at the time, and it actually sounded like. It honestly sounded like two children giggling and laughing and some kind of chattering language, which completely shocked me because in that direction there are no homes at all. The only thing in that direction is a large river and nothing but woods and wilderness. I mean, there's absolutely no homes in that direction for at least 10 miles. So it was definitely a very strange sound, and it certainly got me excited when I heard it.
Wow. Yeah, I bet it did.
Yeah, so Henry, when you take all this together, it's it makes me feel that it'd be extremely unlikely that the data we're getting is unreliable as far as these prints and unnatural structures and all that other stuff we're finding out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see. If I can get the page to come up.
I actually would like to see exactly where this goes, because what you guys are doing, there's two ways this really could go. Is you could find a lot of evidence that would get you good information, or because you're spending so much time on this particular site, they may actually walk away from it because there's too much contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, plus, James, this area is so large. I mean, it's just unbelievably large, and it's interconnected with, it's kind of bisected by a large river body, and the other side of the river is just an immense, undeveloped amount of wooded acreage. These things, more than likely, the permanent home is on the other side of the river. And the reason I state that is because the other side of the river is private land. It's probably not accessed normally by humans unless some humans have some permission from owners to hunt it. But more than likely, they probably come over into this other area that we're looking around on, probably to possibly hunt or to get food. I have a feeling that they go back to their home, which is probably on land that's not public, because they know there's no human interference there.
Mm-hmm. That's a solid point, too, because that's what I was going to ask the question about is, with so many hunters in that area, you would be amazed that they would be that close, because what I've seen and what I've read, they're, as I've always said to Sean, is we are really their only threat, if you look at it.
I agree. I agree with that statement. And I would think that there is unrest within that area, that there's hunting going on. I don't think it would be worth trying to habituate in such an area. I think that if you're going to try to habituate, you're going to need to go into an area where there's not a lot of hunting, because this creature's got to be scared and jumpy for sure in such an area.
Yep. All right, again, the phone number is 347-996-5814. If you guys have any questions for Billy or Tom, or perhaps myself or James, call on in. Okay. Sorry. Now, both of you guys, you've probably heard of Tim Cassidy said that he was hit by pheromones, not necessarily infrasound. I know you guys are big subscribers to the infrasound, well, sort of big subscribers to the infrasound theory. Do you suppose it could possibly be a combination of pheromones and infrasound that these creatures are using to disorient people?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be one to dismiss that. I'm sure that it's possible. That may very well be what the stench is that people smell, some type of a pheromone trigger, some type of a special sweat gland or whatever it could be. Now, I'm not a biologist by no means, but I certainly don't see why this creature would be any different from other creatures that have that type of defense. I've kind of looked at some information about infrasound, and the more I read, the more interested I get in it. Actually realizing what, infrasound is capable of is quite amazing, in all honesty. It can be used as a defense mechanism, and it's powerful from what I can see from some of the things that I've read about it. So it does not surprise me that a creature supposedly of this size anyway, if you're talking about a 8 foot tall creature, of course it's going to have a large chest cavity. Sure, it's going to have large vocal cords, so I certainly don't know why it wouldn't be able to produce such a sound.
That's very true.
For me, I would keep an open mind and say anything's possible at this point. I'm hoping to build an infrasound device here sometime in the future, and then use computer software as my oscilloscope. It would be similar to processing seismic signals, infrasound. We would have to actually go out and collect background soundings first for several days to establish background noises, because there are various sources of infrasound out there that are constantly being made. Sounds that... So, the only way to go forth is just to keep an open mind and collect data. As far as I think once I get this equipment built, we go into an area where we have some known activity, hopefully an area where they're habituating, and we can then collect the data and rule out or or the data will tell the story. In other words.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, we have a couple of callers calling in. The first is from 510. I think I know who that is, but we're going to go on ahead and pick that up. 510. Wait a minute. 510, you are on the air of the Sasquatch Experience with Henry May, James Baker, Billy Willard, and Tom Lancaster.
Well, this is John Doe calling, and I wanted to ask about this baby chattering thing. Did you guys record these sounds?
Yes, actually, John, the sounds were recorded. They were not recorded by me or Tom. It was recorded by another fellow researcher that was there. He does have it recorded, so we are certainly eagerly awaiting him to download those recordings so that we can examine.
And would there be any way for any of us to obtain a copy?
Well, that actually depends on this other researcher. We can't speak for him, and certainly eventually it will come out, I would suspect, but we can't speak for this other researcher.
Well, what I mean is, since you probably know this fellow at least a little bit, what do you think the chances are that people can buy a copy, trade a copy, get a copy, or something in a little while?
Oh, I would imagine that's not a problem, and I don't think the money would be involved. One of the things we're going to look at is what I'm interested in is I'd like to see if this chatter has got any organization to it, such as what they did up in Ohio. They had some garbled chatter, and they were able to pick out some Algonquian, ancient Native American Indian words in it. And to look at this stuff a little bit would be, maybe a good thing for everybody to get involved with that. And maybe the more heads on it, maybe the more will come out of it. But at this point, I don't know. I can't really talk for this other researcher as to when it's going to come out, but I would suspect it will be.
I wanted to tell you that I have heard the same thing.
Oh, really? Now, what
you heard of a fellow
describe your noise that you heard?
Have you heard of a fellow named Tuklo Nashoba from Oklahoma?
I think I have.
Billy, what about you?
I haven't heard the name, but I would certainly be interested in hearing about it.
Well, he's a half Indian fellow who claims to have some quite bizarre Bigfoot contact experiences in the same kind of area as Dr. He's a herbalist. I'm trying to think. What's the famous greeting card company?
Hallmark?
Yeah, Charlie Hallmark. They live in the same vicinity near, I think it's Sulphur, Oklahoma. And I was invited to come down and join up with Tuklo after he had some bad experiences with the BFRO people. And so I was glad to do that. And it was about 3 or 4 years ago. And I went down there in January and joined him, and I slept in a sleeping bag part of the evenings in his sort of an office in a garage, and also I spent nights in my own motel. And one night he wanted to take me up through a locked gate up a hill to an area where there had been a lot of contacts in the past. And as never fails, whenever you try and do something with Bigfoot, you wind up you run into problems. Running out of gas, or your battery goes flat, or your tires go flat, or something happens. Maybe this is familiar to some of you, and it almost seems as if it's deliberately set up to bug you and prevent you from doing what you're doing. Well, in this case, he had the combination for the gate lock, and it wasn't working. He kept working on it and said, well, I've done this 100 times before. Why won't it open tonight? And while he was working on that, I was standing close to him by this gate, and I'd say 50 feet or so from us on the other side in a little grove of trees, there came out what I would call a bunch of chittering. Not exactly a bird thing, and sort of kind of like a monkey thing, but like monkeys chattering or chittering at each other. And, of course, we hadn't expected this, so we weren't able to record it. Now, naturally, as soon as the gate was opened, it all stopped. And we went in and didn't find anything at that particular spot. And we checked out further up the hill that evening and didn't find too much of anything. So the next day I went back, and I found out a very bizarre thing close to that grove of trees where the chittering noise had come from. I found a wild pig that was dead, and it was lying on its side, and it had been like partially butchered or something, like the intestines that were spilling out of it, and one leg was raised up with a rope and tied to a tree. And I wasn't sure whether there were a bunch of kids were playing with a dead hog or what was going on, but it seemed bizarre to me to find this real close to this, where the chittering noise had come out. All very strange, all of it. Wow. So I congratulate you on getting those sounds, and I do hope you will urge strongly your friend to give you copies and let other people hear it.
Oh, I'm sure it'll eventually make its way out into the public realm. Hey, do you have a recording of your recording somewhere publicly displayed of your recording?
No, as I said, we didn't expect to get any sounds that night in Oklahoma. So, since we weren't prepared, and naturally the sounds happened. This is the way it is with Bigfoot. They catch you when you run out of film, or they catch you when your camera's broken, things like that. And it does appear that they are able to read your mind and to play with you.
Right.
Which is something that you probably know who I am by now. I believe that normal apes and humans cannot do. This is an extraordinary being. Very, very, very extraordinary. And I'm wondering if I could
Mr. Beckjord.
Oh, it could be. I'm wondering if I could get Mickey Sean here to allow me to reply to some of the comments you made at the end of the last program, where you were talking about me at great length, but you would not let me answer at that time. But you had a good time talking about me anyway. And I felt kind of frustrated because I couldn't get in to reply to some things that were not correct.
Well, Sean's not here, number one. He's sick.
Well, Henry will do, because Henry was part of that.
Well, I'm actually glad that you did call, because today you are a lot calmer, and I think that was one of our biggest comments. Well,
I had a strange phone connection before.
Okay, but you know what I mean.
Well, I felt that what you did was extremely unfair, to put it mildly, because you're talking about a guy behind his back in public, but he doesn't get to answer you right there. Was that fair, Henry?
I think it's fair, Eric.
You do.
Eric, if you got something to say, if you want to respond, the floor is yours. The floor is all yours.
I will respond. First of all, you guys were talking about things that Dr. Krantz had said or theorized in the past as if he was an expert. Dr. Krantz has never seen a Bigfoot. He's never even heard one. He may have found some tracks that were shown to him by the people. But Krantz is not an expert, and the fact that he came out with a book, which is now very, very out of date, doesn't mean that he was right. You were referring just to one of many things. You were talking, well, we never find any dead bears in the woods. That isn't true. 5 years ago, I told everybody on the Internet, 5 years ago, that there is a national park in Canada up near the Yukon Territory where they find one dead bear every month. And I'm talking about naturally dead. Naturally dead. And yet, still, people like you, Henry, keep maintaining this myth that, oh, no, we don't ever find any dead bears in the woods, therefore we can't expect to find Bigfoot either. Well, it's just not true. It's just not true. And I'm surprised you didn't know about this, because it's been widely spread around. In fact,
Eric, to be fair, Dr. Krantz is now dead. So therefore, during his investigations, he found, talking to all these game guys and game wardens and things like that, in his investigations that there were no naturally dead bears found. Now,
I know Dr. Krantz personally. Did you know that?
I knew that.
I have. I've been to meetings with him, and we have had many, many discussions, and this is before the days of email. On the telephone, ye gods, on the telephone. And I used to talk to Renee Hinden as well, although that wasn't very much fun. And I have to tell you that Dr. Krantz was not a good researcher. I'm aware of his attempts to find things about Bigfoot, but he wasn't very good at it. And he said he had a lot of obligations at WSU to teach classes. I would say that Dr. Meldrum now is doing a little more research in the field than Krantz ever did. And what he found at the time, well, was only in talking to some rangers. I was able to find out that bears were found dead with one phone call, just one. It didn't take me 5 or 10 years. Just one phone call. I checked out a place where there were a lot of bears, and the ranger said, yeah, we find dead ones, naturally, not ones that are shot, but that just die of disease or whatever, or old age, and we find them. We find the bones.
Eric, I think you resolved your scenario. So let's move on.
There's plenty more. There's plenty more.
I think we've reached resolution. So let's move on. And
they were talking about the tracks that disappear and ridiculing those.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's the most serious issue there can be in all of Bigfoot research. And I had people coming on saying, oh, well, ho, 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 it had to be this, and ho, 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 it had to be that. And yet, those people were not trackers. I am a tracker.
Okay.
And tracking in the snow is actually a piece of cake.
Yeah.
All these tracks were fresh. They were not days and days old. There was no melting involved. These were found within half an hour of the time that they were laid down by Brian Smith. And there were no trees to jump in. There was no evidence of Bigfoot going from tree to tree. These were like trees were maybe, 15 feet tall at the most, and they would have bent over. And they would have
Eric, it could have backtracked to its track.
That is the most, Henry, I don't want to use a nasty word, but that is the most backward, to make a pun, backward statement I have ever heard from Bigfooters, and I keep hearing it a lot. You can't backtrack to nothing, because, for instance, the ones that I found started from underneath the bush where the snow had fallen on it. So I want to ask you, where would that one in Puyallup, Washington, where would it backtrack to? And why do you think I wouldn't catch that? You think I'm really stupid? I'm a good tracker. I can tell if someone is walking backwards in their own tracks. It's a no-brainer. There's a slight overlap, and sometimes a big overlap.
Eric, we have callers waiting, so...
and they aren't as good as me.
Okay,
they don't have the information I have or the experience.
Goodbye, Eric.
First of all, Henry, can I say something?
Go ahead, Billy.
I want to clear the air here really quickly because I feel that I feel really bad for a man who can't be here to defend himself, Mr. Grover Krantz. Mr. Grover Krantz was a wonderful man for what he did. He was a wonderful researcher. Sure, the man may not have gone out into the field, found, tracks, but the man knew how to study the tracks. That was his job. He knew how to do that. That was his profession.
That's right, Billy. Billy, we have two more callers that have called in. Caller from the, wait a second, 269 area code. Go ahead. You're with Henry May, Billy Willard, James Baker, and Tom Lancaster.
Yeah, how you doing?
How are you?
Oh, pretty good. How you doing?
How can we help you tonight, sir?
Yeah, that guy that was on the phone with you, he's full of a bunch of shit, ain't he?
Yeah, he is. We don't mind Mr. Beckjord's theory so much as when he starts abusing people.
Yeah.
And I want to apologize to my audience. Hang on, caller. I want to apologize to our audience for that disruption. Mr. Beckjord, if you would conduct yourself a little more, less confrontational, you might actually get some results. Instead of saying, oh, those colors aren't as good as me, those colors aren't as good as me. No, Mr. Beckjord, That's not how we operate. Sorry.
And I do think in the beginning, like I said, it came out a lot calmer, and we started to listen, until we really tracked who he was, and then we asked the questions. But I think his calmness gave him a little more validity, is the word I'm looking for.
Well, yeah. I think we all need to laugh a little more, enjoy the hobby a little more, not be so damn serious.
Exactly.
He's got some data. He's got some data, and so you present the data and let everybody else make up their minds. Don't force your conclusions on other people.
Guys.
That would be my only
Hey, whoa. Please don't talk over each other. Okay, guys? Let's get one at a time. 269, do you have a question for us?
No, I was just joining in on the argument.
Okay. Well, we've got another caller, so 269, if you don't have anything to say, we're going to move on to our other caller, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you for calling. Okay, let's see. 518 area code. You are on the air on the Sasquatch Experience with, well, darn it, hang on. Can I click the button? You are on the air on the, well, dang it. Oh, wait, we already got them. Never mind. Okay, 518, you are on the Sasquatch Experience with Henry May, James Baker, Billy Willard, and Tom Lancaster.
Hey, I just wanted to call in and let you guys know what a great job you're doing tonight.
Steve!
Yeah, I heard the little interruption with the Doodlehead, and I know he's still listening. And if he wants to commit, if he wants his own radio show, have him commit. Have him sign up for his free account at Blog Talk Radio and have his own radio show. And,
yeah.
And that's my point. And again, I agree with Billy 100%. Mr. Krantz, Dr. Krantz, is passed away. Let's not, judge up the name of a good man by calling him a bad researcher, which is complete and utter garbage. I too have known people that have spoken to Dr. Krantz personally, and they say quite the opposite. So, other than that, folks, I just want to let you know, guys, great job. Billy, you're a great guy. Tom, Jim, Henry, good luck to all of you. And guys, have a great night.
All right, Steve, thanks for calling in. Thanks. Appreciate your support.
Yeah,
Steve, what you got lined up? Wait a minute, Steve, you still there? Steve, you still there? Oh, he's gone. I was going to ask him what he got lined up for tomorrow night. That's okay. Okay, Billy and Tom, I'm sorry about all the interruptions. We want to kind of wrap things up a little early here. Final thoughts from you gentlemen. Kill or no kill?
Definitely no kill on my side, Henry. I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, my feelings are that this creature we really don't have evidence that it's aggressive towards us, and it shows compassion towards other fellow BFers, like, for example, or Bigfoot. For example, a Bigfoot gets shot in a particular sighting report that I'm reading now, and other Bigfoots come in and grab that injured Bigfoot and carefully drag it away, showing compassion, and then showing other feelings.